Hi, and welcome to this small tutorial about the Sonos integration with the Fibaro. Rather than writing something out which can be a little bit complicated, I thought it's easier just to show you. If you click, I got all my sources from the Fibaro Forums and the Sonos virtual device, which has been written by krikroff, and what I've done is to make it easier, I've added the web address at the bottom of the video and also the code for the playback is also included in the video as well. So all you need to do is download the two files and add them as virtual devices into your system, change some configurations, and then you'll have everything working. I have written none of this code. All I have done is search through the forums, a couple of different threads, and managed to work out and integrate whatever I wanted together to create the virtual device plugin for the Sonos speaker, and also to create the text-to-speech. It's not true text-to-speech because the Google stuff's been changed and they've changed the coding or whatever. So you have to do some predefined MP3 files which you add to your collection. Once you've added those collections, what we're going to do is we're going to actually call those MP3 files and make the Sonos speaker play them. So yes, there are a few extra steps, but at the moment, until things get worked out with the true text-to-speech, then this is what we got so far. So Fibaro Forums, Sonos virtual device, Diraj is the first guy who's written this, and then if you go through all 11 pages of it, it explains how to use the VD, but krikroff has created one for us, so thanks to krikroff. And also on page 9 is the code here that's used to play the MP3 files, and it's somewhere here, it is in the middle. So again, it's been done by somebody called Jean-Christophe Vermand, and this is for playing an MP3 file. So what you need to do is create your short MP3 files, add them to your Sonos music collection. So I have a network drive, a NAS drive, and in there is all my music collection. I've also created a folder called audio, and in there I have put my collection of MP3 files, and so I've included my MP3 files. So if I just show you them, so this is my folder called audio, and I've just created 4 small MP3 files: garage alarm off, garage alarm on, house alarm off. But you can create any number of files, whatever your requirements are, just create them. The other thing you've got to do is you've got to remember the path for these files. So on my particular one, it's the IP address /music /audio / and then G alarm off. You'll see that when we get to write it. First thing we need to do is we need to download the files. Straightforward to do on your web page. By the way, this is one of my home. If you type in www.yorkshireautomation.co.uk/sonos.zip, that will then allow you to download the files. I've already done that, as you can see, and I've actually unzipped them as well. So let's clear all this. Once you've logged into your home center, I've got 3 Sonos speakers, and that means we have to create some variables, extra set of variables. Now with each speaker you have 2 variables, the Sonos last command and the Sonos TTS. At the moment, like I said, the TTS doesn't work, but in future it may work. They might have a fix for that, so it's best to create everything up front now, so later on you don't have to do anything. So first things first, we need to go to the panels and create our variables. Now, like I said, I have got 3 sets of speakers, so we need to create them in the top variable section, and they have to be written exactly like this. So that's my first one for Los Sonos command, and my second one, Sonos TTS. Click on save. Now, as I mentioned, I have got 3 speakers, so I have to create 3 sets, but I have to make sure that the second set and the third set are slightly different to the first. So one's in the kitchen, so I'm going to label it with append it with the letter K. So those are variables created. That's done. Now let's add the virtual device. So just add or remove, choose file, and that's the VD. So let's add that in. Now this one is in my main room, so we'll call it Cinema Sonos, and it goes into my virtual devices. Now I already know the IP address of this one, and it's port number 1400 as always. In the next section, to be honest, there's no changes required on the first one. The first one is there's no changes whatsoever, and just save it. Just go back up. There you are. As you can see, it's all come back on. Now I'll just quickly log on to the app, and you'll be able to see the music. There you are. Let's put the volume down a bit. As you can see, the volume's been lowered and it's currently playing, so let's just stop it. It stopped. There is a slight gap, but as you can see, that's working perfectly fine. Now the next one we have is the kitchen and the bedroom. So for that one, all we do again, go to devices, add or remove, and we just choose the virtual device once again. But this time we're going to call this one kitchen, Sonos. Oops. I'm still going to keep it in the VD, but this IP address is 32. You can find this information out from the section on your phone, on the Sonos app itself, on the main one. Now we have to make some changes. Now, because this is the kitchen Sonos, we can't use the same variables, otherwise they'll end up controlling this first one. So we now have to amend all of these boxes here, starting with the play button. Where it says last command, it's the kitchen one, so we're putting that appending the letter K to each and every one of these. So you have to do it on all of these buttons here. All those buttons are done. Now we've got to go into the code. I've already made a note of which line numbers we need to amend. So we need to line number 1446, which is the Sonos last command. So let's go all the way down to line number 1446. Here we are, 1446, and change that to add the cane, and the second part, it comes in this 1458, which is just here. There are 2 more changes, the Sonos TTS. So once TTS works back again, hopefully it'll start working straight away without amending our code, and that appears on lines 1472 and 1476. So 1472 and 1476. Once that is done, click your save button. There we are, it's all done. Click on devices again, add or remove device, choose file. So it's going to whiz through this, and remember again, this time and this was called my bedroom one, so Sonos bedroom. Put it in the VD section, 10.0.1.31, 1400. And again, we've got to go back and change all these variables. If we don't do this, like I mentioned before, if we don't do this, then what will happen is, because the original variable was set to the cinema room, it'll always send the commands to the cinema room rather than the bedroom. Let's be again and save. Right, that one's set. That's all there is to do it, to do the virtual devices for all three. So if we go right down to here, there we are. So we've got the cinema, kitchen and the bedroom all done. Next part was the I know it's called TTS, text to speech, but we're going to include our own MP3 tracks instead. Now we've got to go back to the variables panel, because what we want to do is we need to send a message to the speakers. Now for this purpose, I'm only want to sending it to two speakers, the cinema room and the kitchen, as both of these rooms are located near the front and rear exit doors. So they're the ones that I want to concentrate on. So we need to create two variables. You could get away with one. It just means that both speakers will always say the same thing. In future, I may want to send one command to one speaker and not bother with the other side, or send a different command to the speaker. So this way I've decided to create separate commands so I can send separate MP3 tracks to each one. So I'm just future proofing it. So we'll call that front Sonos and rear Sonos. Okay. So there you are, front Sonos and rear Sonos. At the moment they've got 0 values. Okay, now we go back to devices. We need to add 2. We've got to add 2 devices, as we want to create 2 of them for this purpose. If I wanted to control the one in the bedroom as well, then yes, I would have added a 3rd device. So this one's the TTS plugin. So load that one up, and I'll call this one Cinema TTS, and put it in the VD room. And as before, the IP address is 10.01.30 and it's 1400. Now there's a couple of file changes on this one, not a huge amount to do. First of all, the only changes you need to make is just here, just there. Everything else you leave alone, as that we have pre-configured everything, so you don't have to touch it. So XXX is the name of the variable, so let's get rid of XXX and put front Sonos. Now this part, so whenever we create the variable, we're going to pre-populate the variable with the MP3 we want to play. Then this just pulls that variable and plays it. So all we have to do, rather than making this multiple times, we can just have to change the variable and then it'll just play the variable. That way it's a lot quicker, it's a lot easier, and it's more efficient. We also need to know the ID of the virtual device we created. To find that easily, once you're on this page, click on save, go to your devices. Cinema Sonos is what we want, so there. The ID is 187, so we'll make a note of that. And then we need to go on to the kitchen Sonos, and that ID is 188, so we'll make another note of that. So those are the 2 IDs we need. So let's go back on to the Cinema TTS Advanced tab, and we need to put that in here. So the Cinema one was 187, so let's put that in 187. Saved. So that's the only two changes. Variable name there, and the ID of the virtual device. The reason for that is right at the bottom here, it'll play the file at volume level 50. You can change that from 1 to 100, so it'll play at level 1 or play at level 100. I've set it to 50, seems okay, seems to work for us, but you can test that and play that around. And the second part is, as a precaution, I just wanted to hit the stop button once it's played the track, so you don't hear that hissing sound at the end of it. But to be honest, this final line, you don't really need it if you don't want it. So once we've saved it, it's all done. That's complete. Now, all we do, we've got to do it again for the kitchen one. So let's choose it, TTS, and call that is rear Sonos, and the ID was 188. I am going to make the volume change on this one, as we have a door in between the kitchen and the rear door, and that's usually closed, so we can't hear it. So let's increase the volume to 75 and save it. That's done. That's both done. It's as simple as that. These guys, Jean-Christophe, Vermande, excellent job. Done it all for us, pre-filled everything. We just have to plug in a couple of numbers and the paths of the MP3, and it works perfectly. Now, next part, let's play the track. To use this, we just have to add a couple of lines to our scenes. And most of our scenes that we create will, especially in Lua, it's got to be in Lua, are if and then statements. So if something is triggered, then do this. And all we're going to do is we're going to add a couple of lines to the do this section. So if we just go into our test scene at the moment, rather than playing with the, just to show you, click on the advanced. Now we usually got if, open bracket then, and then we've got that end. So that's our typical starting statement. So as an example, we'll say if we create a little variable called PIR equals, let's have a look, I've got a sensor in the cinema room, so where are we? Cinema room sensor value, there we are. And then we can say if PIR is 1, so basically if it detects motion, then let's put a trigger value in there so we can test it as well. Then we'll say turn on the lights. Okay, yeah, straightforward. So let's have a look. So no, let's turn on the spots. So turn on, there we are. And then what we'll say is let it sleep for 2 seconds, and then we'll turn them back off again. Okay, yep, standard stuff. So if we save that, there we are. So if the sensor is detected, lights turn on, after 2 seconds lights turn off. Straightforward stuff, working fine. That's pretty much your bog standard if and then statement, but we now want some extra statements. Now we want the speaker to turn on instead. So what we have to do is set the globals up. Okay, now we need to put the data in for the variable. Remember, we have two variables. We have front Sonos for the front speaker, rear Sonos for the rear speaker. We have to populate the variable. Once we populate the variable, we can then play the variable, and then it will come up on its respective speaker. We can't use the front Sonos on the rear and vice versa, because that's how we set up our original TTS virtual devices. So let's start with setting the variable. Fibaro set global. Now I do it this way so I don't forget to put the apostrophes in front. Sonos and / disk station / music / audio / h alarm on .mp3. So that's the full path of where the music file is kept on my NAS drive. Exactly the same way how the Sonos app finds MP3. So theoretically, I could put in a music track in there if I wanted. As long as any MP3 file you can put in there. The thing is, this will only play around about 30 seconds anyway. So anything you want, you'll have it to play with. And then Fibaro, we've set the variable, now we need to get it to play it. So to play it, we just press the play TTS button, so we can actually call the scene to play it. Best way of doing it is click on the VD, Cinema TTS, press the button, because we're going to be pressing button number 1. We're going to be pressing button 1. So let's go on to there. So ID of the Cinema TTS is 190, and I want to press the first button. There's only one button. Now if I press save, go back into here. Now if I wanted to do the rear speaker again, I'd add in just here the rear speaker set global, and also the call function for the kitchen speaker, which is ID 191, and it would have done the same job. So let's hear it.
The house alarm has been turned on. The house alarm has been turned on.
There you are, all done. Triggered again, so that's working fine. So like I said, set this. These are the only 2 lines per speaker. So there and there are the only 2 lines you need to do per speaker to get your notifications, or shall we say announcements, working properly. That's it. Just make sure you keep your notifications short and sweet, and jobs are good done. Keep browsing the website, and hope you enjoyed that. Bye for now.